All right. Welcome to Artcasters number 345, coming at you from the garage. And we got Paul with us tonight. And yeah, so it's gonna be a good show. We've already got a few people in the chat, so thanks for joining us. Um, and Paul and Josh will be reading, and so you can infer what they're thinking about as they read. So since they're reading, Scott, why don't you tell us where we can find your stuff?
You can find my stuff at circworks.com. You can also find my videos at Circworks on YouTube, where you will find my video series, Making Comics 101. It is a soup to nuts course on how to make comics, everything coming up with your own ideas, all the way to printing, publishing, and all the steps in between. It's all for free. It's the most comprehensive course you're going to find on making comics anywhere, and it's on YouTube. So for free, I should say. I mean, you may find a more comprehensive course somewhere, but you might have to pay a lot for it. So, but yeah, check that out. And there's tons of cool stuff on my website as well.
Cool, that's awesome. And Josh, what are you reading there? Where can?
Oh, just reading these wonderful Detective Perez stories by a young upstart named Paul Pate. Yeah. Well, anyhow, now that I'm interrupting my reading, I will mention you guys should go pick up Jacob's Apartment, which is a story following a young adult named Jacob who is at a crisis of faith, and in it, during his crisis of faith, finds connection with his roommate Sarah. And as they find connection in their common pursuit of common dreams, their dreams in reality and in their sleep start interweaving in a compelling, amazing story that you should pick up and ask your local bookstore, or better yet, go ask your local library to carry this book, Jacob's Apartment. And then also there's my autobiographical slice of life comic, Two Stories, which you can get on Amazon, and my band, No Saboteurs, which you can check out anywhere streaming music is found. That's my long plugs.
Awesome. And you can find my stuff as always at CoreyKerr.com. And I just finished some client work based on some of the personal stuff I was doing recently. And so if you want like a more detailed shot of that, then jump on the email newsletter at CoreyKerr.com/email. And Paul, tell us who you are and where can we find your stuff?
Hello, my name is Paul Pate. I'm an artist. You can find my stuff at paulpate.com of all places.
Oh, that's bizarre. Why would you choose that one?
And yeah, 8 letters, right, Corey?
Oh yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and as Josh mentioned, you can go get go to your local library and check out this book, Jacob's Apartment. It's about a young man who is having a crisis of faith. Yeah, my graphic novels of Detective Perez they're at Amazon. There's a link to them on my page. You can link to my animation. You can link to my Instagram page where I post my most recent, artwork that involves caricatures and things like that. So yeah, paulpate.com.
That's awesome. Well, so Scott reached out to me and said, "Hey, can I switch you?" And I said, "Sure." And as soon as I knew that this was my week, I thought, "Oh, Paul would be great to have on," because I didn't know you were working on an animated short. I had seen you over the last few months, like posting these cool little clips. And I don't know how I didn't connect, like, oh, these all go together. But like, it was really cool because you'd have the way that you do it is like it's like a. I was telling Jim Lujan, I said, Paul's like a mixture of you and I. It's like kind of like it's not quite Jim Lujan, it's not quite me. And then you also, I think, do a lot more traditional, like, frame by frame than either of us. And so I was just really
animating on the ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was really enjoying watching that. I think it was mostly on Instagram that you were sharing the little clips.
Yeah.
It was cool. And so you just released that. And so I thought we should have Paul on to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I love watching you guys, your show, and so it's fun to be on. And the last time I was on, I had done was had watched Making Comics 101 and then created Samurai Tie comic book. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, and now it's an animated short.
Yeah, now
it's
so
pretty
there's
cool.
an animated short that's kind of goes along with it. So, and there's a guy named Ty. Unfortunately, Ty had some health problems recently and was in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So, but it looks like he's going to make a recovery, which is great. So,
good.
He's kind of like my hype man, you know. So I've been missing him, but he's a real guy, and so it's kind of fun to have a comic book and a cartoon to go together, companion, and they're the same story, sort of, you know, but not really. Mm-hmm. So it's got the same character. They're fighting cyborgs and stuff like that. So a lot of action and colorful blood and
yeah, like that.
So.
So I was noticing that you were kind of putting that together. How long did you work on that? Because it's like over 5 or 6 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's about 5.5 minutes, give or take. And I worked on it for about a year, I'd say, maybe a little bit more than a year. You know, I also did a comic book. I was working on a comic book in that same time. So comic book called Slop that hasn't come out yet. But I mean, it's finished. It's just hasn't come out yet. So it's been a while, but kind of had it going on the background at first, and then once I finished Slop, then I focused on the animation, and it's a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you do a lot of the frame by frame action scenes.
Right.
It's a lot of drawing and a lot of this. Like, okay, I'm leaning over I'm drawing with this hand, and I'm kind of leaning over with my other hand, you know, hitting the keyboard. Mm-hmm. And it's crouched over, and it's just uncomfortable. And I took it down. I had a computer back here that I was using to do it, and so I was in my studio all the time. So check this out. I just got this in the mail today. I got something in the mail today, which is this thing. See this?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is that?
I can put my iPad on this, set it on my lap. You know? And I haven't tried it yet, but I'm really kind of excited about this because I actually have a wooden easel that I sit in my lap. But I have one of those. My iPad, and I can go sit on the couch or go somewhere, you know, wherever. But when I was doing the animation, I was sort of stuck. I'm anchored here in the studio.
Right.
It's kind of, you know, a drag. So anyway, all to say, I'm glad it's over.
I mean, 5 minutes of animation is a ton, especially doing it the way you're doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of action in those scenes.
Well, but I think yours is probably more intense than mine because I'm doing like puppets. Like I'll draw a character and then I rig the character up, and if I want him to move his arm, I just put some keyframes in. But if you want him to move his arm, you're actually drawing several full drawings of that person moving their arm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So that's pretty intense. And so you had mentioned you want to talk about your film, which I could talk about. I have all kinds of questions about your process and all that, but also talk about like kind of now what, you know. And this is something that I call like the post project letdown. Like you finish something. Yeah. You're really excited about finishing it, and you have that high, and then like an hour later, you're like, well, that was such a huge part of my life, and it's over now. You know, like now what do I do? It's like finishing like a book, and then you're like, well, now I just don't get to live in those characters' heads anymore, and there's this empty space.
I know. It was kind of wild too. It was because the day that I finished, actually, I wasn't expecting to finish. I got up at it was a Sunday. and the Cowboys were going to play it. I'm a big Cowboys fan, and they were going to play it like 4:25, right, in the afternoon. I got up Sunday at 6 a.m. because that's when I like to, do a lot of work and in the morning and when I'm fresh. And man, I sat there and I worked on it. I was close to finishing, so I worked on it till like probably 5:30, 6 o'clock. I mean, I didn't stop to eat. I think I had a cup of coffee, it was nuts. But I was like, oh, I'm going to finish this sucker and just kind of got rolling and was able to finish it. And I wasn't expecting to finish it that day, but it was kind of, And then you're just like, I'm already looking forward to doing whatever, I'm going to do next. I was looking forward to just having a break and not doing anything, but I'm thinking now all the time, as you guys know, as a creative, your brain's always going. So, the whole time I'm thinking, what do I want to do next? And I deliberately have put it off. It's just like, you know what? I'm not going to do anything next, or, I am going to do something, but I'm not committing to anything. I'm still undecided. So, which is kind of fun, to have nothing in the chamber,
But Paul, you said you also have a comic you said that's finished that you haven't released yet too. So so that's kind of cool where you're in a position where you just released the animated short. and you've already got a comic ready to go. So that's
well I got a writer on that one. So he's gonna release it when he's ready.
Okay, got it.
And it comes with it comes with like a music compilation. So cool. That's a whole other thing that, when that comes out, that'll just be gravy, I'll have the fun of having it come out and having already done the work, a long time ago. So that'll be fun, right? Because the fun part is for me anyway, is is when people get to watch it, or look at it or read it or whatever. That's the fun part. You feel like you're connecting with people and so that'll be fun. But there is the letdown, I guess, once that, as soon as you finish, you're like, oh.
I find the part where people are watching it or reading it to be the worst part. That's
really
because
you enjoy the process of it.
I enjoy the process of it much more than I like marketing it or hearing people's feedback or watch. Like I spent my first animated short, Put Your Heart Into It. I was very excited about it, and I remember showing somebody, and about halfway through, and it's a 2.5 minute short, so it's not long. Halfway through, I saw them like quickly move the mouse to check how much, so that the little timer would come up. And I immediately was like, all right, well, that was several months of my life that I'll never get back. It's all over now. Like I just, it's done. I'm like, I've bored this person. They're not even 60 seconds into this thing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's so true though. I guess there is that from dread part of it too, like,
there is something surreal too. Because like making it in slow motion is it's kind of surreal when it goes to real motion,
for sure.
It's bizarre. Jim is asking, how do you feel when you play your films in front of a live audience? I started animating during the pandemic, so I've never had that experience. I've made 3 animated shorts since 2020, so they've never played. And I also live in a place where even if it is playing somewhere, it's not near me. Like nothing plays near me. Like
right.
I have to. I mean, like I'm going down to help Scott with something, and like I still have to drive 4 hours to the nearest airport. So there's no film festivals where I am.
Right.
But have you had that experience, Paul, where you're playing in front of a live audience?
Yeah. So my first film, The Train Job, was in a theater with a couple hundred people. And my friend Al and I are watching it. We're sitting there, you know, like my wife and my kids and some family and friends are there, but there's about 200 people all together watching a series of films, which one of them was the train job. And yeah, I mean, it was just like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe this is getting ready to play here. You know, and it was like, my film is so bad. And then it started playing, and my friend Al, who helped me work on it, we started getting the giggles because like there's one part that was like poorly done, you know, and I was like, oh God. And then my friend Al just kind of started chuckling, you know, and then I started getting like those uncontrollable giggles, you know. And I think people in the crowd were like, they didn't know who we were, so they were just like, oh my gosh, you know, who are these jerks laughing at the cartoon?
I love that you're the creator, and like somebody in the audience might be turning to you and being like, shh, we're watching.
Right, quit being so rude. Yeah. But it was fun. I mean, after I got over that, you know, I think one of the worst things is like, you know, I had my brother, you know, I hardly ever see come visit, you know, and he's like, the cartoons are great. I'm like, yeah, let me show you this one. And we sit down, you know, and it's just the two of us. And I've already seen it. Like you said, Corey, you know, you can kind of see them, you know, like, okay, yeah, like after 30 seconds, you know, like, yeah, this is cool. Do I really want to sit here and watch all 5 minutes? You know, right. Super awkward now, you know.
I gave up on trying to show my stuff to friends and family. You know, there are people out there that will appreciate it, but it's probably not your friends and family.
Yeah,
I mean, they're happy you're doing stuff, but they, you know, I found that they don't always really care to watch it. So.
Yeah, you move, you know, that's smart. Yeah, and in general, I mean, my wife, she doesn't know, you know, she doesn't pay attention to what I'm doing, and it's probably good, you know. So my kids are certainly not interested, you know, so.
My daughter has gotten to the stage where I can see her making an effort to appear interested, which is interesting. So I go, okay, that's nice of you.
Yeah, very thoughtful.
So when you're doing this, you said you're doing it on the iPad. Is that Procreate, or what are you?
Yeah, well, I do my just like portraits and caricatures and things on Procreate. I use Clip Studio on my iPad to do comics.
Oh, okay.
And then I did my animation, or I've done all my animation in Flash. So I do all the drawing and art and everything in Flash.
So you have the subscription to Clip Studio for the iPad then?
Yeah.
Okay. And
it's like $8.53 a month or something like that.
Yeah. If you use it, you know, I was kind of like, I haven't started to use it on the iPad just because I don't know, I kind of still prefer to use the big, you know, my home setup. But at some point I think I'm gonna have to figure out, you know, more of a mobile solution. I've got something that I use. I bought like a I think it's a 16-inch tablet.
Okay.
But it's not like I mean, I've got the iPad, but to me that surface is too small, so I've got the bigger one, but it's not totally portable. Like, you know, I mean, you still have to plug a bunch of stuff in to make it work, so it's not battery operated or anything. But
gotcha.
But I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I spend my day job here in my studio. You know, I work like Josh. Your day job. I know you get, because you're vlogging, you get in the car and you drive to work.
Yeah.
And then you come home and then you work on, you know, your graphic novels, right?
Yeah.
And I remember doing that, and I was anxious to get home and draw. Now when I'm in the studio all day for work, and then all I have to do is turn around and start animating. I want to get out of here. You know what I mean? I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
So that's unbalanced and not healthy, you know. So that was hard with the animations, to stay down here and work on it. You know, I want to go upstairs and see my wife and kids and just get out of the house sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
the iPad is, and just the since I associate comics with my iPad now, and getting out of here, and it's just right now it's just a lot more pleasant. The thought of doing that is a lot more pleasant for me, So,
Yeah.
Christopher has a question along those lines, and I'd be interested in a lot of people's answers on this. But is there a preference for you of animation or illustration, or do you enjoy the ability to go from one or the other? That's one thing I've always admired about Josh, being able to stick to something for so long, because I feel like I jump from project to project, or I'll have multiple projects at once, and it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing.
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, so that when I feel one way, I can kind of move that way, and I feel a different way, I can move that other way.
Right.
Do you have like a preference, or is it kind of like a mood thing, or?
Yeah, I think it's a mood thing. I mean, I like to work on one thing at a time, focus on it, because I find myself thinking about it, in the background,
Yeah.
like the characters and stuff like that. Like, what do I want to happen next? And I like to immerse myself in it, But, doing animation for a while, I'm pretty sick of it.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to do some work on some comics, I think. So I know I'm not going to do animation, so it's going to be comics, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. So
yeah,
I'm just trying to decide what to do next, and I think I want to do another Detective Press.
Yay! That's awesome.
That'll be cool. I had a similar experience. With Shades, the short that I just finished.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of this is like my life was falling apart while I was making that, or how much of it was just that. But like, by the time it was done, I was like, I am so over everything involving that period of my life. And so I really wanted to do something drastically different. And I actually started 2 or 3 different projects.
Okay.
To kind of see what I wanted to do, thinking, oh, it's going to be this. And then I started a different one, and it's going to be this. And now I think I've settled into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you have some, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've found that, I'm like, maybe 6 months or a year ago, I started like I had spoken to you about it, Josh, a fantasy story.
Yeah.
That I was really excited about. And that's what I'm trying to decide. Do I want to do Detective Perez, or do I want to do I call it my Ariston story. It's my Game of Thrones, or whatever you want to call it. But so yeah, and I started on it, but then I stopped. I'm like, I'm not, I'm not into it. That was about a year ago, I think, maybe. But so yeah, I think you could, there's nothing wrong with that. Some starts and stops, and false starts, and there's a length of it. Like when I got done with just this week, I did some caricatures, because those are short, right? I get like an hour little drawing, and then I'm done, and it's just relaxing for me. But then there's longer projects, like an animated short, 5-minute animated short. That's a longer, year-long process, A graphic novel may take a year or 2. Josh, yours takes, a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I think there's also that part of it is like, there's different things that you can work on, but there's also different project arcs, the length of the project that requires the focus and the follow through of one thing, and it depends on how much energy you want to, get it put into it,
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I like the idea of like really focusing on something and developing a piece of work that takes longer, a year to finish. Because at the end of it, I don't know why but you're kind of proud of, the piece. So anyway, I don't know if that answers Christopher's question, but yeah,
I think so.
I like being able to go back and forth. Josh is like, you've mastered, in my estimation. That's why I went and got this Jacob's Apartment. you focus on comic storytelling, and I mean, to me, you've mastered it, and
Thank you.
that's also something I like. I like the idea of. I don't necessarily know if I'm cut out for that.
I think you are. This comic is so well cartooned and paced, and it's
Thanks.
entertaining. It's the drawing is like just solid cartooning. It's great. It's really good. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if it's a good time to do this or not, but since we're talking about it, so I started reading Jacob's Apartment, and like the beginning, there's no dialogue, but there's these. I'm not going to be good at this, but there's these frames. There's like the 12 frame page, and it sets up the tension real well right from the beginning, right? You got like I mean, it's not this kind of book, but you got a half-dressed girl, right? And a guy, and so it sets up that tension right away. But there's no dialogue, but there's a lot of different frames and a lot of artwork, right? And then the next page, let me go. What's happening? Next page, yeah. there is some dialogue. Okay, there's some dialogue, but then there's another page where there's no dialogue. But there's a lot of these small frames, right? A couple pages like that, and then I think it gets into more of the regular kind of comic pacing. No, it's still in the intro. Yep, still in the intro, and then it has like the Jacob's Apartment intro, kind of, and then I think it gets into But what you're talking about, Josh, is that's kind of pacing because, and you've got like a great. I don't know if you do it you do. It seems like it comes naturally or easy to you, but maybe that probably doesn't. It's probably your storytelling though, where you have that pacing of you're taking your reader on a ride, and so you start off like with this tension, and then you with all the artwork, and then it goes into dialogue, and it slows down, with bigger pictures, and I don't know, it's cool, it's well done. So,
thank you.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
But that's part of like mastering the art of sequential art. Sequential art storytelling, comics.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, the pacing is everything, and I think like that's one of the things with the Detective Perez stuff. It's like so well paced. It doesn't miss a beat. It's a very action-packed story, but it's detective. It's a detective story with some sci-fi elements, but it's nonstop, and you constantly change perspectives and keep the reader engaged and interested, and you have the mystery unravel and some sense of mystery throughout. I think it's really masterfully done as well. So here we're just gonna compliment each other's books.
Right, I know, right? So,
but I was like, to be honest, like when you buy a book by somebody you like, you always like are kind of secretly like, oh man, I hope this is good, right? Like, and then when I read it, I was like, oh man, okay, Paul's like insanely good. Like this is really, really entertaining. I would read it if I didn't know you. Like it's good.
Thanks.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But which means everybody out there should be checking out the Detective Perez series. And if you're doing a third, that's really exciting. That's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm kind of just sitting here, just taking a break,
Yeah,
and
you got to kind of enjoy that moment, right? Like that quiet moment when you're done, and it's like you are able to sit with endless possibility.
Yeah,
that can be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not committed to anything, so yeah, that's kind of nice. But I don't want to sit here too long, because I got, I don't know why. It's just I'm stricken with the whatever this is that we do, so got to keep it moving.
So that's a question, I think, for everybody, but definitely for you, Paul. Like, do you find that, like, when you finish a project, you have the creative, like, it's almost like a curse where it's like you're done and you have that like brief moment of like, yes, all right, it's done. And then the next thing, it's like, got to do the next thing.
Yeah. That's why I'm deliberately not doing the next thing. I don't, I need to take at least some days or a week or a month.
Yeah, because like midway through the next project, you're going to be like, what was I doing? Why didn't I take that time?
Yeah. And I'm going to be thinking about, what I'm going to start thinking about the one after that. It's like, God, man, just relax for a minute, dude.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's what I mean about like you haven't had that. So when is the last time you had that, Josh? You've had a couple of things in the chamber.
Yeah.
Well, for years, right?
Yeah, I really haven't. And I'm like about a fourth of the way through the current one, and I'm like, I'm dreaming of the day you're having,
right.
which is hilarious because I know, because it's like, and Paul, you know this too. It's like you do your first graphic novel or whatever, and you're like, when I finish this book, it's just going to be this great, beautiful thing. You finish the book, and then there's the next book.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, just this next book, I'll just do that. And then you do that, and you're like, well, now I need a third book. Like there's
if I'm gonna really do this right, I need a third book.
Yeah, it's like the Sisyphean task of doing this stuff. Corey, like, do you find that too? Like when you finish, it's like there's this brief moment of like, oh, okay, cool, and then instantly you're just like, next project.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm well, so I don't think that's a good. I don't think anybody should base their life. I have often joked, only half jokingly, that I self-medicate with art. So, it's a much better habit than a lot of the other vices you could take on. But but what I tried, I think a couple of years ago, I noticed that I was probably doing it in an unhealthy way. And I've really been thinking, so what I did is I finished Put Your Heart Into It. And you'll probably remember this, Josh, because we were doing the 48-hour art check at the time. And I intentionally didn't start another project for like a month or more, just because I wanted to sit in like the kind of marketing and promotion phase of that.
Yeah.
And that was excruciatingly difficult. Like I was just, I felt so many things that I don't normally feel. And recently I've kind of been looking into, like I did a whole YouTube video on this, on numbing behaviors, the stuff you do instead of your art. But I also think that production can be a numbing behavior as well. Like I think any activity that you do where you're trying to escape sitting with yourself is not good. And so I'm trying to find a place now where I can both do this, but also be with myself in a healthy way. And so I think I'm finding a better balance. I especially maybe like last year, I read a book called Big Magic, which is kind of, I would say, like the mirror opposite of War of Art. It's basically the same message, but it's much more of a touchy-feely rather than light a fire situation. And I realized that a lot of my self-talk was probably pretty toxic. Like I had fully bought into like the hustle culture and the worship of busy, and and I was just like, nose to the grindstone, sacrifice my body, soul, and whatever to get this done, and it wasn't good, and I was satisfied, but I wasn't happy. And I'm trying to get to a place where I can be both satisfied and experience more moments of happiness. Because I remember Scott always saying, when Josh and I would be like, yeah, there's this suffering and there's this struggle. And he's like, I like drawing. And I'm like, I want to do
Weirdo, weird like drawing.
Yeah. And I'm like, I like it too, but I don't know why I don't allow myself to feel that. And so I'm trying to get
Scott
to a
says
place.
that with a leather jacket and then flips up his.
Yeah,
Starts
rebel.
talking about.
Well, you know,
he hits the jukebox on his way out and it turns on.
Exactly. And then he shakes Gary Hodges down for like quarters at the arcade. Anyhow,
I feel like there's a variety here. I think Corey, I relate to where you're at, you know.
Yeah.
Josh, you're a machine. I mean, I can't imagine, you know. You're just grinding, you know. Is the impression that I get.
Yeah, I've had a similar thing to Corey in the sense that I've recently had this realization that I need to realize that I've arrived, and so I'm constantly, and so I'm constantly like chasing this thing, and it's like, you know, there is no thing, like it's just a dragon. I'm tilting at windmills or doing the Sisyphean task. And honestly, that's just the nature of life. We're all doing Sisyphean tasks, but it's like you can either enjoy rolling the boulder or you can like stress about it and be like, I'm going to get over the hill. And to realize like, no, it's just you and the boulder and you're where you are. And that's okay. Like that's been something for me that's big. But anyhow, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
No. I think I understand. So the one that I think is cool is Scott, which I don't know you that well, Scott, but the impression that I get is you're because you're producing comics, and I'm curious how long one of them takes you, and because I don't have any of them yet, but you're also doing, the making comics videos and the CircWorks Art Lab videos, and then doing or freelance work.
Yeah, digital assets.
Right, but don't have all the mental baggage that the rest of us seem to be going through. So which I think is impressive. It's like, just. And I think that's probably the impression that I get is that's the people that can do it professionally are just have that, comfort level or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so first, as far as how long it takes me to do the comics, too long. I've been working on this thing, but it is because of all the other stuff that I'm doing and everything too. That's kind of, my comic is kind of my passion project. And then I'm working on other comics that most people won't get to see because they're either for a client or something like that. But a lot of that attitude is sort of a recent development in the last couple of years. Just I went through some leadership training. I've talked a little bit about that before, but it's really changed my perspective on how I view things. And because I was very much that just like Corey had mentioned, very much the hustle culture and stuff like that. And I don't know, and just realizing that you get to also take the time to enjoy other things. And you shouldn't just have to, I'm so fortunate that I get to do what I love for a living, and so I want to love it, and I want to, so, and there's, to me, I like to, everything I do, I like to look at it as sort of a creative endeavor, even if it doesn't, because that's my nature. So that's what I apply to it. So even if it's something you wouldn't necessarily think of as creative, I don't know. I just kind of approach it the same way that I do, because I'm like a daydreamer, I could be camping or something, and then my mind's wandering and I'm thinking of things. So it's like I'm still being creative while I'm doing other things. So I don't know. I try to open myself up to other things, but that's a lot of that's pretty recent. If you go back, and you probably would see a shift in the type of videos I do, and just my attitude and everything. And a lot of that is just through like leadership training and and just having a kind of a new perspective on everything. So
and I think that's pretty brilliant because like the thing is like, you know, I've only just recently been doing this for like the last month or so, but when I sit down to work on my comics, I usually have this attitude of like, I got to go work on my comic. And lately I've been like, I'm getting to work on my comic. Like it's something I'm actually choosing to do because I like doing it.
Yeah.
And like it is hard when you're used to that hustle culture of like, we're all our own drill sergeant, you know, and it's like, but when you're people like, I think all four of us, like we're very driven people. So I think a lot of the time we don't really need the drill sergeant. We need somebody who's like along. Yeah. We need more presence in the moment instead of like, you know,
sure.
And I think the drill sergeant has a function for like, you know, if you're a young artist and you're kind of slacking off and you're like, I don't know what to do with the blank page. It's like you kind of do need somebody to come along and be like, dude, just snap out of it and like make something, you know, like you need that. But I think where we're at, you know, maybe not so much.
So Josh, I mean, I think it's definitely good to have that experience of that kind of hustle culture, have that sort of in your back pocket, because there's times like just recently I had to pull that out, and it's like, well, I've got this deadline and it's crazy, and I got to get this thing done. And so I know how to do that. But then, you know, once it's done, then it's kind of like, okay, now I can relax and I can go back to it. So there's going to be some times where you need to, it helps to have that, like deadlines and things like that. But if you can, you know, hopefully everything isn't like that. So, but I was going to ask, and, you know, share as much as you want, but your recent kind of experience that you had, Josh.
Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect, I mean, do you think that's something you had to go through, and in the long run it'll be a good thing? Because otherwise, I mean, because I think everyone around you kind of was just like in awe, like, how does he do this? How does he go without sleep and all this? And then we realized, oh, maybe he doesn't do that as well as we thought.
Well, what's weird is what's surprising is that I managed to do it for as long as I did.
Right.
But yeah, it's like there's been a lot of valuable stuff. I think it was like a healthy way to reset, and also just to remember that, like, to ask like at what cost when you're kind of making a decision, instead of just being like, well, I just gotta knuckles, you know, down and like stay up till 5 a.m. drawing or whatever. It's like, no, at what cost, you know, to me, if I only get like 2 hours of sleep a night for a week. And you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff, like balancing stuff, being more comfortable with just saying no, and accepting that I don't have to like prove my value. Like I have value. I've already I've already, like I was saying, I've already arrived. Like, you know, I have publishers, I have books out, I like my art. Like I don't have to like prove something, but that's a hard thing to break. And I wonder if Paul has this too, but it's like, you know, for me, I've proved myself so much in my life with my art. And so it's a weird thing to kind of adapt to, like being comfortable with just being like, no, I just make art and I'll make it well, you know, obviously I'll hold it to a high standard, but I don't have to prove anything, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I had my episode a few years ago, and learned a lot from that. I have, you know, health limitations with Parkinson's and stuff. So, this sounds stupid, but one of the things I do is Netflix and chill.
Yeah.
No,
that's hard for a creative to do. I don't know if people realize that watching.
Like, you know, it's like wasted. Actually, and I don't feel like it's wasted time, because what I do is I try to watch things as a storyteller, you know?
Yeah.
And which that gets tiresome too sometimes. Sometimes I just want to watch it and just veg out and
just sit back and enjoy it.
Watch it. So I'll watch a comedian or something, you know. And,
Josh, go ahead.
No, but I'm trying to be balanced about life, you know. I romanticize about the time when I was just like all-nighters, you know, just grinding. And it's fun to, you know, I had fun. I mean, it was nuts, but I had fun, but, you know, it was just not sustainable. So
I I want to be really pedantic for a moment and read a Shakespeare quote that reminded me of what Josh was saying. But then I want to jump back to what Paul is saying, because I've been trying an experiment with a class.
Wait,
and
you're going to
actually,
get canceled if it's Taming of the Shrew. That's all I'm
it is not. So it might be worse. But it's what when if I gain the thing I seek, a dream, a breath, a froth of fleeting joy, who buys a minute's mirth to wail a week, or sells eternity to get a toy? For one sweet grape, who will the vine destroy? Or what fond beggar, but to touch the crown, would with the scepter be straight stricken down? So that's this guy that is trying to contemplate this horrible act. And he goes through, and that question is stuck with me. I heard that quote in my early 20s, and I've often used that by way of saying, like, well, what do I actually get for what I'm putting into this? Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, am I burning on the altar of busy productivity, hustle culture, years of my life? And then what do I get at the end of that? A book a couple months earlier, or a short film, a couple weeks earlier or something like, but what I've sacrificed for that, I don't know if it's always worth it. Or example, like, I would hate to, one of the things for me is, like, I want to be present with my family, and I want to be aware, I never want them. I remember early on when I first started, I said, I'm going to learn how to draw. Right. And so I first started to do this about 10 years ago, and I'm going to learn how to do this. And I remember getting up early, and my daughter was 2 at the time, and she would hear me no matter how quiet I was. It was kind of, we were in a smaller house, and she would come in, and I remember being frustrated with her, like, coming into my studio, because this was the time that I had set apart, at like 4:45 in the morning. And so then I was like, oh no, that's not how I want to do this. Like, I'm not interested in sacrificing the relationship with my kid for this other thing. And so I adjusted it to do it at night and things like that. But that kind of quote has often stuck with me. But then Paul, what you were saying is really interesting, because I had a class, I'm going to, because of FERPA, be very vague. I had a class that I felt like was, how a group of people will get together and the group has a particular personality, and you can take members of that group and put them in a different group, and that group has a different personality. The personality of this class was really toxic. Okay. And so I asked them if they would be willing to participate in an experiment with me, and they said that they would. And so it has been an amazing transformation, because we have spent the first, and this is a little bit weird to do publicly, but we've spent the first 3 minutes of every class doing some sort of meditative practice, like as a class. And so I'm like, we're going to put your phones down, shut your laptops, and we're just going to focus on breathing for 3 minutes. And then, or I'll do like short form Tai Chi, which is what I did today. And it is, you take a bunch of very self-conscious 19 to 22-year-olds, and it's like, all right, we're going to stand in a classroom and we're going to move around a little bit. Kayla's in the chat, and she really likes it.
Corey, have you seen High Fidelity?
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, there's this character Tim Robbins plays, who's like this kind of hippie who does a lot of meditation and stuff. Yeah. And there's a point where he's stealing John Cusack's girlfriend, and then he comes to John Cusack's workplace, and John Cusack's furious, and he's like, look, we're gonna talk about some anger management issues. And he's doing this like kind of weird thing, and he has like a ponytail. Is that you in class, Corey?
Kayla says it's awesome, and I actually look forward to that. So I'm hoping that I'm not.
No, meditation's legit. I'm just giving you a hard.
No, but for me, it's been very interesting, because I have done like academic studies in my master's on the value of like mental downtime. But in practice in my life, it is so difficult with the distraction rectangle that I carry in my pocket all the time, and the screens everywhere, and all of the things that are much more immediately gratifying, but not long-term. Yeah. To take intentional time to sit and just, I'm going to like turn off everything and just sit on this grass and be with a sketchbook and just draw what I see. Or instead of doing that with an audiobook or doing, and constantly trying to make sure that I'm consuming as much as I possibly can. It's been very interesting to do that. And so just kind of both of you had kind of like this experience that kind of shook you out of it. And for me, it's been, I haven't had that, but I have had a very physically difficult year that is just kind of like, all right, like I said, when I broke my collarbone and my ribs and punctured my lung, I wasn't allowed.
He could keep tacking on too. It's not.
I know.
Like
I'm sorry to laugh.
And then
but...
flooded my house and like. Yeah. I mean, that list could just keep going.
I'm sorry.
Pneumonia several times. No, I want people to laugh. Actually, Josh and Scott and Jim and Gary and a few others, we have like a running gag for a while of like how Corey almost died, because there's a lot of those stories. And then as soon as they were like, it was a story that was happening real time rather than a story that I was telling from the past, everybody stopped telling jokes. And I was like, oh, no. You guys still need to make fun of this, because I am not going to be that guy that everybody's like walking on eggshells around. This is funny right now. But I mean, during that period of time, there was a long time where I couldn't physically move the right side of my body. And so I couldn't draw, and I couldn't, and it was torture. Like I was forced. I could barely walk. I couldn't shower myself or dress myself. I had to do everything left-handed, and so I basically I couldn't pick up my kids. I couldn't drive. I was an invalid for at least a month or longer, and it was I and I don't want to say this in a judgmental way, but I was like, is this what it's like for all the muggles? Is this what, like, you just consume content all the time? You don't do anything. You just like sit here and just watch TV.
Right.
I'm like, how are you like surviving?
Yeah.
It was absolutely horrendous.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what would be like, like, okay, I don't have this curse that I have anymore. I don't have the obligation to create something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I kind of feel like
just consume. Oh,
yeah.
It sucks, huh?
And I kind of feel like going through a situation like that, Corey, you couldn't survive a situation like that without accepting your own limitations, because there's just a point where you're either going to accept it or you're just going to be filled with just bitterness and fury.
Yeah.
The secret
to all of that, by the way, is
from
to
Jim?
I've been neglecting the comments. Adam, I don't know if Adam's still there, but Adam mentioned about your the beginning of Jacob's apartment was like a cold open.
Yeah.
That
was cool.
I had to fight for that cold open too, because it's unusual to have your title page. Technically should just be like, you have your left page, your right page is your half title page, and then the next should be your title page. So to change that was a not much of a fight, because my editor was cool. So I just explained my thinking, and they were like, oh yeah. Because I was like, I want it to feel more like an introduction, like suck people into it, and then have the title. Her higher up, I had to sell on it. So
I gotcha.
What do you guys think about this? Do you revisit or read or watch your old projects?
I used to do that, and I hated it, because I was so disappointed in everything that I was making. And that used to drive me. When I was in that toxic thing, like, I hated everything that I made. Like I very rarely made anything that I liked. And so I would look back and I would hate it. But then kind of getting out of that kind of like weird headspace, now I can look back and be like, I remember enjoying making it, and I remember the process, and I remember what I was trying to do with it, and I still like what I was attempting. And some of the stuff that I've gone back to, I've actually enjoyed. Like I remember watching some old animations that are a couple years old and just thinking that was pretty good, and that's like a new thought that I'm allowing myself.
What about you, Paul? Like right now, how many times have you watched your animation? Oh, did we miss Paul?
Oh no, I think Paul froze.
He froze.
Oh no.
My
All
bad.
right.
Froze.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pedal faster. Yeah, how many times?
Oh, we lost Paul again. Oh no.
Oh,
Paul's getting attacked by the cyborgs, and
The corporate cyborgs.
Go ahead and answer until my. Well, am I back?
You're
Yes.
back.
Seems
Yeah.
like it.
Okay, so, yeah, I watched this Samurai Time animation a bunch of times. Trying to look at it with somebody else's eyes. But now I'm done with it, and I won't go back to it for a long time. But my answer is the same as Corey's. I'm getting better about looking back at my old stuff, feeling more comfortable with where I'm at and with what I've done, and not dreading it so much. So yeah, I don't mind, but I generally don't. When I'm done, I'm done.
Yeah.
Keep it moving, going forward. Keep moving forward.
I usually have like one moment when this is the best part about publishing, even self-publishing. It's about the same. There's this beautiful moment when you work really long on a book. Like Paul, you've spent like a year or so on a book, like a couple years actually. And it's like, you send it out, it goes to print, comes back, it's a bound book, right?
Yeah,
and you have that brief moment when you get to open this is like the 10 seconds of excitement is you get the book and you smell it and it smells like a new book because I'm a nerd. I literally will smell the book. And
I get it.
And then I read it. Just like I'll read it for the first time since like editing and all of that. I'll just sit down and read the book and be like, how did it come out? And also I'm checking it for like, okay, are the colors working and stuff? Like, did the printer botch it? And there's a brief moment of like kind of enjoying the book, because usually, at least in publishing, there's a long delay between when you finish and then it actually comes out. And so like when you get to sit down and read it, it's like it's been long enough where it's like, okay, I can actually like kind of enjoy the book. But then I forget about it. And the only times I'll read a book that I've done now is like if I have to remember my pitch or like try to remember what. Yeah, but I don't read my own work a lot. Yeah, but
I mean, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you. I don't remember the story arc of Detective Perez, or I couldn't tell you how it goes or anything. Right now, I don't remember because I just
But if you have to pitch book 3, then you might go through 1 and 2 just to kind of like brush up on it so you can talk about it. Yeah.
What about you, Scott? I mean, I don't feel like you have much. You just seem like you're much healthier about all this.
Yeah, he's reading Young and the Dead like every morning.
No, I don't know.
While bench pressing.
I'll definitely reread it before I start like a new issue and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'll read them all together and see. And luckily, when I read them over, I'm like, okay, it's not half bad. So, sometimes I read it worrying, am I gonna look at it and then say, oh man, what was I doing? But so far, usually when I reread it, I'm like, okay, and I forgot I put that little thing in there that's gonna pay off later. I can't wait till I get to actually write that thing. So I don't know, but.
Yeah, that's essential too when you're working on like something that's sequential, where it's like, there's issue 1, 2, 3. Like you have to go back and kind of reread what you did, because again, like we're making this stuff like Paul, like making the animation you just released. It's like a really quick paced like fight sequence. There are scenes where you're playing with perspective in it, in these insanely challenging to animate ways, where you're having it like people move toward the camera, and it's like that's got to be a nightmare to animate. And there are these quick, complicated sequences that you were living through in probably like it's like living through it in slow motion. Like you're like you're feeling the punch as you're doing it like this, and then you watch it and it's like really fast.
Yeah.
How when you live through it in slow motion, it's like when you watch it back in real time, are you kind of like, whoa, that's weird, that was quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but when you animate it, I mean, I do the little pieces like Corey was talking about that I post online. The little pieces. You work on it, a little 10-second piece, and then you watch it back. And so, but then the wild part is when you do piece it all together. All those little pieces, and there's so many things that are just like, man, it took me forever to get that little 10-second thing, and all it is a little 10-second thing that most people won't notice anyway, and some of the frames don't even get in there, they're just cut right out and stuff. So yeah, it's a trip for sure.
Yeah. So you're gonna make like a 20-hour animation now, right? Like that's the next project.
Yeah, that was a joke for a while that I was just, biting off these giant projects that I, could never possibly complete. But
well, it seems like, I mean, you've completed like some pretty giant projects, Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Oh, I was just going to say, Philip has a good question that I think I'd like to hear.
A really good question.
Paul's answer. So if you have a story that's over 100 pages, or you could say, more than a minute of animation, do you ever get tired of the story, especially when it's somebody else's story that you're doing the art for? So you've done several projects where you're not the writer. And so do you get sick of that? Or is that different for you than doing your own writing? Or
for me,
yeah,
I don't like it.
Yeah,
and I'm not doing that anymore.
Oh, you're like done, huh?
Yeah, no. Now Slop was a little bit different. I liked the story, and I kind of volunteered for that. But yeah, just commissions in general.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle. I struggle with it. I got to get more healthy before I can do something like that. I just don't know if I'll ever be there. Yeah. If I'm going to dedicate a year to something, it's going to be all me, meaning, I want to do. Bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it sounds selfish or narcissistic. It probably is, but
I don't know. I mean, yeah,
I struggle with the whole commission thing.
Yeah. And I'm in a point right now where I can't really turn down paid work because my house flooded after I was in the hospital for a week. And so that's like all of my extra money is gone. But normally after I did Be Mine, and that client was great. She was awesome. She's like a dream client. Mm-hmm. But I felt like the same way. I was like, I don't want to do this.
But the thing here is, though, that Philip brings up is 100 pages.
Yeah.
Now I love doing like caricature commissions because it's a short little thing, short sprint, right? I can spend a couple hours, but I don't get paid. I get paid for it, and it's good money, but it's not, this whole long journey that's just gonna, mess me up.
Yeah, months of your life.
Yeah, I wouldn't work on anything over 100 pages for anybody unless it was something I really believed in. So now I'm like kind of a co-creator on the one that I'm working on, which to me, that I love the script, so that kind of works. So I don't get tired of the story. The work, though, I'm like I'm like 54 pages in.
Wow. On
a book right now, and it's like the 54 pages in, you start hitting, like, I always feel like it's like there's maybe, Paul, maybe you have this too, but I feel like there's these little buffers where you it's like you do 1 through 10 and it goes pretty smooth, and then it's a slog, and then you hit 25 and you're like, all right, cool, that's a quarter of the way through, and then 25 to like 30 is fun, and then it's a slog, and then you're like, oh, I'm 50, cool, 50. So it's like
1 through, like the initial excitement is like 1 through 10. You know, you can just, plow through those. And then actually for a long time, for me, it was like 25, 30 pages where I get there and I go, this is a bunch of crap. Toss it. And then, so I did that a bunch of times. And then once I got past that 25, 30 pages, I was like, okay, now I don't even remember after that. But I'm going to the end. I'm finished. I'm going. And I just plowed through the rest. But yeah, there's these hills or, that you got to get over, hurdles that you got to leap over. But I mean, I think the one of the keys to it, like Corey, I noticed, you're working on these pieces, like you had been doing animations. Now you're working on these pieces. And they're probably not as the arc of the piece is not as long. And I think that's a critical piece of it. It's got to be, that's part of what makes it enjoyable or not enjoyable, or what you can do or you can't.
Yeah, and I've learned that's a really important thing for me, is to try to find a sweet spot of length of commitment on myself, because I've done in the past, I've done like, okay, I'm going to do 30 designs in 30 days. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's too fast. I don't enjoy that as much. I can do it, and it's a good exercise. And I think I'm glad I did it 3 or 4 times. But then if it takes longer than a few months, I don't know if it's worth it. It starts to,
it's got to be really something you really believe in and you're committed to and dedicated to, like Josh is the current.
Right. And there has really never been much in my life that I've been so dedicated to that I'm like, I'm going to spend 5 years of my life. I don't know. But I mean, outside of like relationships with people and, and things like that, but even like jobs, like I'm surprised that I'm still at the same place that I'm at, because prior to this, I had never made it for more than 5 years before I was like, I'm sick of this place. I'm out. I need a change. But the ones that I'm working on right now are really complicated, but I can get them done in less than a week. And so I feel like it's a more substantial, it's a more substantial commitment than doing like some of my, like the style that I use for like sticker illustrations and stuff. Like it's a really thick, like inking style, and it's fast, and I can get one of those done in a day or two. And the more complicated ones, might take, a few hours longer than 2 days, and this is like not 2 full working days, but this is like 2 days of, like free time stuff. But these ones, they're intense, and I've like timed myself. Like I'm a good 40 to 45 minutes, like on a single tentacle, because it's so much inking. Yeah. But it's almost like
you're awesome.
Oh, thank you. But it's also little enough because it's one illustration. Of one thing with no backgrounds and no like it's only the stuff I enjoy doing. There's no perspective, there's no backgrounds, there's no environment. There's just symbolism of a figure. Kind of moving around, and so I can get that fulfillment quicker, but still feel like I've accomplished something a little bit more substantial than like a t-shirt design or a sticker design. So I'm finding a really nice kind of meditative sweet spot, because I love, and Josh and I have talked about this a lot. Like inking is kind of a meditative state, and so like penciling is not, and so the penciling is probably the majority of the work on these, and then once I solve all of those problems, I get to just be in this kind of flow state for a few days,
right,
and then repeat. And it's I'm not batching anything, and I'm not trying to accomplish a specific number of them within a specific time, but it's like 4 to 7 days per illustration. Nice. And it's a nice it's a nice thing, because I'm getting those little wins, those little short-term wins of like I finished something and that carries in. I think people who haven't finished things are at a massive disadvantage when it comes to creation, whether it be animation or illustration or comics or art or writing or anything.
Yeah.
Finishing is huge. And so
I know that's why, like, Scott's got videos on just do a mini comic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Once you have that tangible thing that you've done, now you can mentally wrap your head around what it takes,
Yeah.
And then you can maybe bite off a bigger project or do that again, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That was huge for me, finishing that first thing and getting it, now I know what I can do.
Yeah, but like your latest animation is so ambitious. Like, I mean, so how long overall would you say you spent on it?
I mean, I can't tell you the hours. I really don't have an idea. Like,
yeah, because that's
I could sit down for 2 hours and work on it one night, and for 4 hours another night, and I just wouldn't keep track at all. So, and then on the weekend I might spend 8, 12 hours. Who knows?
Yeah.
And then another weekend I don't touch it for 2-3 weeks. So, yeah, I just have no clue, Josh. I really
that makes sense though, because like I haven't done a ton of animation. The little bit that I have done, I did notice that it's kind of similar to music editing, which I did want to ask you about the music on your video too, because it's awesome. But there's this kind of Zen type thing that happens when you're editing music, where you can just kind of like blink and like 4 hours have gone by.
Yeah.
And I noticed that with like the little bit that I delved into animation just for a little bit, it's like it definitely has that vibe where once you have all the assets and you're kind of piecing them together, and
oh my god, I get into the zone.
Yeah,
I don't have that problem with comics.
No,
I don't. I feel it's much more. I don't know what the difference is, but with animation, it's just like these. I don't know, this video movement thing. I don't know what it is, man, but I get into like this trance of just like, I'm working on this, man. Get out of my way.
so much of animation is both analytical and creative at the same time.
There's that.
Because like I'll find like exactly what Josh is talking about. Like I'll be in there and doing something, and I am like fine tuning keyframes. I'm like in like a speed graph editor, getting the curvature of a sine wave between two keyframes going correctly, and then I back out of that and I'm like, oh, it was like 30 minutes for that like 15 seconds or that 15 frame half a second movement or whatever, or something.
Yeah.
Or the impact of it, like getting things to feel like they have weight and force.
Yeah. And then you could spend, and then that's another thing, you can spend 4 hours on 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you can spend 1 hour on 20 seconds, the next day.
Right.
And it's uneven. And that's why I just completely lose track of it. I'm really, it's a real creative process for me too. Animation is because I'm doing like the pencils and the ink and the coloring and then the animation all at the same time sometime, in little pieces. And I'm creating it as I go, even though I have the story scripted out and everything. I'm changing it and I'm doing the acting and it's real creative. It's just, I don't know. It's bananas, man, compared to comics for sure. My approach to comics is more steady and even, so.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I have been reading a bunch of comics lately. I have been, because I'm looking forward to doing comics, and so it's been fun. as I've been winding down this animation, I've been spending my Netflix and chill time reading some comics and thinking
That's
about
great.
just getting back kind of into that mode of thinking about storytelling through comics. And I'm looking forward to, say if it's Detective Perez, I'm looking forward to leveling up on Detective Perez and doing a real good one, so.
That's cool.
That's awesome. I think that's actually a really good kind of in between activity too, is like, because I think we were joking. I don't know, Scott, didn't we show? I think we all showed our stacks of comics that were waiting to be read, but maybe anyhow, I thought we did, but maybe.
This is one that I just came in today. Gary's had her on his.
Yeah, I backed that after we had her on Artcasters too.
Oh yeah,
I backed her too.
Yeah, I like it. As soon as I got it, I read the whole thing.
I'm excited about it. Her pitch abilities are so solid, but the art looks really good. Like it just looks like a really good book.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, I see Gary's got a question here. I don't know if you can bring it up.
Do you ever do videos of yourself or someone else to use as animation reference?
So yeah, man, it's called rotoscope.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of it in Samurai Tie. And what I do is I take a video and I subscribe to Instagram account called Empire of Samurai. And they're always having people doing little samurai videos, or kung fu videos and stuff. And I take those and I rotoscope over them. But rotoscoping is not as easy as
it's extremely time consuming.
Yeah, well, you got to pick the right frames to make it look smooth. The action look smooth. So my action is not exactly. It's not a copy of what the video, because it's cartoons. It's not a video. It's not live action. So it's not a copy. The pacing of it ends up differently. But what I do is I pick out the keyframes of the live action, and then I trace over those, and it's for some really cool. That's where the fight scenes, a lot of the fight scenes in Samurai Tie came from, live action videos that I just got off the internet and did rotoscoping over. And it's fun. It's cool. There's a guy named Matt Smith who is on YouTube, and he strictly does rotoscoping, like these really rough drawings of, just like a guy boxing or something. But he's mastered it. I mean, he's really good at it. And it's just like 3 or 4 drawings, and it's got this smooth motion to it, like this guy punching, right? And I'm like, how does he do that? And I tried to emulate it a few times, and I realized, there's a lot to learn here. So I've been practicing at the rotoscoping thing, and that's one of the things that I really like about Samurai Tie is I got to a certain level of rotoscoping that I thought was proficient to present,
Yeah.
So, yeah. The answer is yes. I haven't done videos of myself, but.
Oh, you're missing out, man. go jump around on the couch and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll do that sometimes where I need a shot or a pose or something, and I'll set my phone up on a tripod and just video. And then you can go back and you kind of like scrub through the video and take screenshots of different parts of it.
Yeah, the keyframe.
Yeah, and it's that's pretty entertaining sometimes. I've got to introduce you to. There's a girl I follow who actually looks like your main character in your animation, and she does a lot of like bow staff and katana and a lot of like sword and anyway, but it's really like a kind of like a Hollywood flashy version of martial arts. Yeah, she's pretty cool. She would be a good one. She would be a good one to do that.
Yeah. My friend Matt is I just figured out how to look at the comments, you guys. So my friend Matt is a big Ralph Bakshi fan.
Yeah.
The guy that does the rotoscoping, and he's the king of rotoscoping. Yeah, and but even the Ralph Bakshi stuff is more, like it's a copy of the video. Some of it is,
Yeah.
where Matt does like this action, and it's not a copy of the video. It's cartoon, but it's I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's almost like, have you ever watched any of the old Disney rotoscoping stuff that they did? So they would have
for like Snow White, yeah.
Snow White, Aladdin, Lion King. I mean, they have like, they've shot full feature live action films of just actors doing this. The best one I think is the Hercules muses singing at the beginning, because it's like some of it is animatic where they're just moving around sketches, and some of it is these women singing the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put it side by side, it's like, that's why that has so much life. But it's not like the characters are directly traced from that, or it's not like they're just using like a posterized filter or something. Like they're seeing that, and they're seeing like the key anchor points of the body and the motion of that. And I think there's some real understanding of like, why is that being sold, and what can I exaggerate and what can I simplify,
right,
in that. And so like a lot of people, I think, miss the point of that, and they're like, oh, it's just tracing. And you're like, there's a lot of nuance and foundational understanding into the choices that you're making off of that reference.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you take a photo, you take a photo and you do a portrait and you trace that photo. Well, you just nailed it, right? You're perfect.
Yeah.
And it looks lifeless.
Yeah.
If I look at the person, if I look at a photo of a person and then I draw it, it starts to come to life.
Yeah.
If I look at the person in real life and I draw it, then you really get something lively,
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't understand it, but it's, it's the art. So, I think that's exactly what you explained there, Corey. Gosh, there was something else I was going to tell you guys. Oh, I know what it was. So I wanted to ask Scott about this, because I know you're talking about doing variant covers and things.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use this as an example, because this just came in the mail, and this is a great example of it. But look at this cover. This cover to me is beautiful art, by the way.
Yeah, it looks great.
It's awesome. And I know that you could get variant covers too, but I think this art is done by the guy Marco DeFillo, who does the inside of it. And the inside is black and white, though. I'll just I hope it's okay to give just a preview of the inside, but it's actually really nice. I mean,
it looks great.
Yeah. Let me see if I can hold it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like from a distance, it looks a little bit light. You don't have a lot of big, heavy stuff. But if you move in close, you can see it's really nice artwork.
Yeah.
But it made me think of, like, I think I like the cover to be like the inside. I don't want to. I want it to be the same. But he could. I don't think he could get away with a black and white cover.
Yeah, that would be difficult. You don't see that very often.
Right. So I don't know. I guess I wanted to.
I mean, Gary's kind of close where he does like just a red, and his standard covers. And black and white. He doesn't have a lot of color.
It's a nice cover, but it's also representative of what's on the inside.
Yeah, but I think if you go the graphic design, more of a graphic design-y look to it rather than illustrative, you could probably get away with it. But then maybe it doesn't match the inside either. Because I'm a big fan of black and white, but I don't necessarily know if I want a black and I'd probably like a black and white cover too, but
I tend to like when people do black and white books with 2-color covers. That's my favorite method.
Like a black, white, and like a blue, or what?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, you say that, but not all your books are like that. Some of your books are in color. So.
That's true.
Oh, you're talking about two stories.
I was just being a jackass.
That's good. Well, I mean, I think we could keep talking for hours and hours, but we're approaching the 90-minute mark here.
Oh, wow.
So, any closing thoughts or anything on this that anybody's got?
Oh, Adam says you see a lot of black and white art on the cover of classic daily comics. Yeah, there's.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he's got the. That's what Adam's work is.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah. Whack. Anyway, I don't have any closing comments.
Yeah. Well,
I've enjoyed talking to you guys. I enjoy you, the Artcasters. Thanks for doing this, you guys. It's really it's great to have on while you're working. And you guys really are thoughtful about your topics and stuff. I mean, for me, it's really inspirational. It's you guys have talked about it. It's kind of like the old bullpen,
Yeah.
Because we don't have that, but this really emulates it real well, So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It's fun. Yeah, it was awesome to have you on. We'll have to have you on again. Just let us reach out whenever you feel like you have a topic.
Maybe a year from now I'll finish another Detective Perez, and I'm not joking about this. If I do another Detective Perez, I'm going back through Comics 101 and for a refresher.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it's like I said, I've been reading a bunch of comics. And that will just because I haven't been practicing that. I haven't been flexing that muscle, So you got to kind of get back into it. You got to, it's like exercise. If I go out and try to play basketball right now, I haven't been playing. My shot's going to be pretty bad. You got to kind of get back into the groove.
Yeah.
Before I start, my actual season. I need a preseason, so that's what that'll be.
Yeah,
I like that.
So
well, that's why I made it. So yeah,
I would recommend that
many times you want.
I would recommend that to anybody, new or veteran.
Yeah,
yep. It is. It's extensive too. Goes over everything you need to know.
Yeah, and just pick out the stuff that you like, that you think applies to you. Skip over some, but that's real great stuff, Scott. Anyway.
Well, Paul, could you remind us again where we could find your stuff?
And I sure can.
By the way, the link to the animation that we've been talking about tonight is in the description of this video. So if you haven't watched that yet, go ahead and go watch that. It's definitely worth it. Sorry, I cut you off there, Paul.
PaulPate.com, and there you'll find links to my animation and my graphic novels and different portraits and caricatures and stuff like that. So
cool. Yeah, well, it was good to have you on. Thanks for coming. Josh, where can we find your stuff?
You can find my stuff at joshuakemble.com, but I will just plug again the Detective Perez series. I'm not kidding. I really enjoy this book. If you're into I don't know, I like the BBC panorama, kind of like Sherlock Holmes kind of stuff. And there's a vibe of that, but with supernatural elements and kind of a Pulp Fiction vibe too. It's a lot of fun. They're a really good read. They're very quick read. I really encourage people to pick these up.
Oh, that's cool.
Thanks, Josh. By the way, you've done wonders for sales. It's been incredible.
Oh, that's good. And if you want to find my stuff, about a month ago, I started doing my newsletter back up again with some kind of longer form stuff, some thoughts on different things and some illustrations that kind of accompany that. And so if you're interested in getting a little bit more explanation of the meaning behind some of the things that I make, and you've got a couple minutes, then jump onto that newsletter and you see those back issues and things. It's been a fun format that I kind of abandoned for a year or so. And so it's been good to get back into that kind of essay based format that 3 people like. And so if you're one of those 3 people, then jump into that newsletter.
Right? We have 3 of those people on this call right now.
Yeah,
so
right.
Hopefully there's more.
Yeah, but that's just at CoreyKerr.com, and then if you go /email, then it'll take you there, or there's little buttons that says join the newsletter or whatever. And if you don't want to do that, then you can just watch some of the animations or read some of the or look at some of the more recent ink work, and that'll be fun. And I like getting the comments of those videos as well. It's really interesting to do like a deep dive of a topic based on something that I'm reading or something that is clashing with something else that I'm thinking about. And then I'll get these really insightful like comments of people that are like things that I hadn't thought of and stuff. And so it's been a really fun and interactive experience for those that are leaving comments. I appreciate that as well. But Scott, where can we find your stuff, and where do we know where this crazy weird scheduled live stream is going to end up?
Yeah, well, since Paul mentioned it, you can find my series Making Comics 101 on my YouTube channel. It's pretty much everything you need to know about making comics. There's in total, I think there's like 70 something episodes in total, but that's including bonus episodes and some deep dives on certain things. But I think the core videos are like, I think there's 22 core videos, but it's everything from, coming up with your ideas and printing, publishing, everything in between. So if you just want to learn about inking, there's an episode on inking. If you want to learn about penciling, and it's not like I'm showing you how to draw, because there's a number of videos out there that do that and that would go on forever. But it's just basically talking about comics and what, just I guess the core information. So check
it gets
out.
you to think about it.
Yeah,
for me, it helped me just think about it. Like, okay, what's the structure of a page? 9 frames. You have the one episode about just the 9 frames and the and then you can deviate from that.
Right.
So
exactly.
you just get you in the mode of thinking of the construction of the comic.
Yeah. Yes. So that's on my YouTube channel. I also have a website where I've got digital tools for helping you make comics, all kinds of stuff there. You can check that out. And then I've got physical stuff too, prints and all that kind of stuff. But the show, Artcasters, we do this show every single week. Today it is on Corey's channel. Next week it'll be my channel because we're going to do a little Halloween episode. We're going to bring David Hartman back. He's kind of our go-to for Halloween. So looking forward to that. But yeah, so basically all that is to say that the channel this show kind of bounces back and forth between our 3 channels. It's usually on Thursday nights, but that can change too. And if you want to know exactly where we're going to go live, all that stuff, just join our mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is usually before we go live, about at least 30 minutes ahead of time, we'll send out an invite. We'll tell you who the guest is, what the topic is, all that kind of stuff. And because YouTube doesn't always notify people. So if you want to watch us live, like the people in the chat. So thanks everyone for the awesome questions and just watching the show. So definitely check that out, and you'll be like the people in the chat, and you'll know exactly when we're going live if you click on that link. So
cool. All right, guys, we will catch you guys next week. Go make stuff.
Go make stuff.